Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers.
Experience is not about the publisher, it is about us, the authors.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. My name is Ebony Wallace, and I am the author of Even Birds Get Tired of Flying. So those of you who have been with us in Author Booth all week, come on in. For those of you who are new, you can join us as well. So today's topic is going to be the power of showing up. The power of showing up. Now, my bird, even birds get tired of flying. Walk until you're able to fly. Hello, Bam. How you doing? Wonderful Friday. TGIF, right, y'all? Especially those of you who are joining me on your lunch break. I really appreciate that. So in this book, we're finding ourselves going through all of these many walking lessons. One of the things I want you guys to think about is as we come to this place and walking, we have to show up. Okay, so one of the greatest forms of love, relationships, family is when they show up. Sometimes you can be going through a hard time, and just the fact that someone is showing up for you can mean the world. But what I also want you to remember is we have to remember to show up for ourselves. Okay, we cannot be in this life, going through life and not showing up for ourselves, not showing up for the big moments that matter to us. Okay, because every time we show up in spite of, we start to build a level of capacity. All right, so let me do a little bit of reading. The muscle of strength is fortified in the push of showing up. Hey, Bob, welcome. You just joined us. I'm having story time right now. The muscle of strength is fortified in the push of showing up. Discipline is born when you consistently show up. Okay. Now, this is something that's kind of like a cuss word for some people because they want things, but they're not putting the systems in place to land them. They're not stewarding their discipline, their time management well to be able to land these greater things or to maintain the things that they have. So when you begin to show up consistently, when you are faithful over things and mastering things that are small, you begin to be trusted with things that are more. As a leadership coach, I find a lot of times it's not that people don't want to promote other people. They're watching them to see if they can count on them, to see if they can show up, to see if they're disciplined enough to go to the next level in leadership. Okay. It's usually easier to do nothing. Oh, thank you, Carla. I enjoyed you guys as well. It's usually easier to do nothing. It takes effort to show up. Okay, so that's a note for you all. It's easy to do nothing, right? Remember, we talked earlier, stagnation takes nothing, growth requires progress. There is so much power in the very act of showing up despite what's going on. Hey, Timothy, good afternoon. Good afternoon, guys. I love when y'all join me on the lunch break. The power in the very act of showing up. But what I have in bold here is despite what's going on. So that's when I know I'm putting on my big girl pants, right? Because not only am I showing up, I'm showing up despite the fires. I know yesterday, things were in a tizzy. Right after I completed the session with you all, my son missed the bus. I had to run and go get him. I had to drop my daughter off for a competition downtown. And then I had to scurry back because I had a Zoom meeting for my university course. And then I had another appointment. So it was just here, there, everywhere. And I was like, I just got to show up. I was like, whatever it takes to show up. I was like, I'm not gonna allow this to blow my gasket. I just need to show up. So even though I was feeling anxious when my kids got in the car, hey guys, how's it going? But I didn't show it because I wanted to show up, because their time was just as important as my time. Okay. So despite what's going on, do I have enough discipline to, even though I've had a long day at work, can I show up for the family when I get off? Even though I may have gotten bad news, can I show up for my friend's 40th or 50th birthday party because they've been planning this for the last 5 years? So showing up in discipline helps us to do it despite what's going on. So that's another level of it, okay? A lot of times, hey, Elaine, a lot of times we do things when it's convenient for us, but there is a push when you can do it in spite of, okay? Showing up when you're in a walking season. Remember, we talked about these walking lessons when your wings aren't working and you're not, on 55,000 pieces of coffee. How do you show up when you're in a walking season? Where can you find you after this? Oh, that's so cute. Ebony Solutions, join me on my website and you can find ways to get in contact with me. I'm on all the social media handles under Ebony Solutions. That's my company name. And maybe I should do story time more often for all of you all, because this has been really therapeutic for me as well, because I'm not in the classroom anymore. So it's like me being in the classroom. So, okay, so I'm getting back to it. Showing up when you're in a walking season will require you to stretch past your weakness and lean into the strength of God. Okay. So God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. So when I'm feeling weak, I sometimes have to pray. I'm like, Lord, you're gonna have to help me with this. You're gonna have to help me with this. I'm at an impasse. Like, I can't do this anymore. This is getting to be too much for me. I need you to stretch me, because I'm feeling a bit inadequate in this. Give me a strategy, send me help. I have faith that it's going to get better. Show me how to get better. Show me how to chunk it into digestible bites so that it's not so overwhelming and daunting. Let me have the opportunity to be able to enjoy this space I'm in and not be overwhelmed. And usually when I begin to say those things and I begin to pray those things, a peace comes over me and I can see the situation more clear, because I'm not just running around and like how I'm going to be all these things to all these people. Now, every time your capacity becomes stretched, you are showing up. How should you show up? You should show up for your family. You should show up for God. You should show up for your friends. You should show up for others. And most of all, you should really be showing up for yourself. A lot of times, I find women do this often because they're in caregiver roles. They will be the most amazing woman, the most amazing wife, the most amazing mother. And then you'll find that they're like, oh, I'm not going to get my hair done. I'm not going to get my nails done. I don't know the last time I bought myself something new. But if I ask them something about their house, they know the details about everyone. And so I always tell them, okay, have you taken some time to show up for you lately? Take some time to show up for you. And even if that means taking a walk or listening to some classical music, or, going to your favorite place and hearing a live band, take some time for yourself. Yes, letting people know you're there is a very powerful show of love and care. There's been many times in my life where I felt like, no one saw, no one understood, you're doing all this work behind the scenes, and then people just show up out of nowhere and they're appreciative. And sometimes it doesn't even take money, just their presence. It shows you that they're there with you. I remember when I wrote this book, I never wrote a book before, and the amount of people that were buying the book was going everywhere. People were shipping it off to people in other countries, and they were like, Ebony, we bought the book. People I haven't talked to since high school. Ebony, we bought the book. And it was just like the way that they showed up, it was so overwhelming for me. The show of love really encouraged and inspired me to keep going, because I didn't think anyone cared about what I had to say, quite frankly, but they showed up. And so there's so much power and courage in showing up and pushing, even if, things may not be optimal for you. Show up for your assignment. Show up when everything is falling apart. Show up when you don't have the answers. Okay? I agree about showing up or even sending a message or anything. That's why I make a point to always say happy birthday to people that I know and give Christmas and New Year's greetings to let them know I appreciate my relationship with them. Yes, Bob, because sometimes it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, but literally, like, people were reaching out left and right. I remember taking a client, and I was at a university function, and a young lady came up to me and she was like, "You're Ebony? Are you the writer, Lady Ebony?" And I was like, I did write a book. And she's like, "We have your book up in Jacksonville." I don't even live in Jacksonville. Somebody bought it, sent it up there to them. I'm at this function. She recognizes me from the back cover of the book. She comes up to me. She starts talking to me about it. And it was just like somebody decided to show up. They bought the book, and then they liked it so much they sent it to somewhere else. I'm in real life, in real time, doing a presentation, and this person comes up to me and they're talking to me about it. And I was so overwhelmed. Like, I was taken aback. I was just like, Lord, like, wow, like, one, showing up for the assignment of writing when I didn't want to, showing up for the assignment of edits when I didn't want to listen to the edit. I just like, I'm done. I don't want to do anything. Just showing up in obedience to an assignment led to so many people being impacted. Also, showing up when others have walked out. Sometimes we'll take on things, and when people walk out, we want to quit too. You can't quit if it was given to you. You can't quit if you're the leader. You can't quit when you're in charge. So sometimes you got to show up when other people get to leave. You don't get to leave. Sometimes you have to show up even if you're the only one. There's been so many times in my life where I showed up and I had to do sometimes speaking engagements in front of thousands and hundreds. And there's been sometimes I gave the same veracity and the same energy, and there were 5 people that showed up. And I'm like, hey, high five. We're about to have a more intimate session. Why? Because you just got to show up. I can't control what other people do. I can't control how many people are going to come to a session. I can't control how many people are going to do this, but I can control Eb. And I can make sure that I'm showing up in my very best self, despite what's going on around me. I've been up since 4 a.m. with my daughter, and I'm here. I'm like, oh, I can't miss it. This is like the last day of Festival of Storytellers. I was like, Ava, get out of the car, honey, because guess what? Mom's got to do her thing, and I got to be ready for that. I got to be ready. I got to show up because this is what I've committed to. Show up when they rise before you do. Guys, that's a big one. That's a big one. Are you a person who claps for your friends if they take off before you? Are you upset when your person, oh, thank you, Sam, I hope you enjoy it. Are you upset when people, they rise before you rise? Now, this one is even deeper. Heart check. Are you upset when you've been working longer, they've been working shorter, and they rise before you do? You still got to show up. You still got to show up. Show up when others receive what you have yet to receive. Show up when you're afraid. Show up because people are learning from you. That's a very powerful one. They're learning from you what to do or what not to do. And you always want to make sure you're the person that's inspiring in a correct manner, and not like, oh my God, if I ever had that, I would never do it like them. Or you would be like, you know what, if I ever had an opportunity, I'm really going to glean from what they had. Angela says, how do you handle challenges and setbacks while maintaining commitment to show up? Okay, so how do I manage challenges and setbacks? I have to lean into my space of faith and lean into my discipline, because discipline shows up when my motivation is low. Discipline shows up when other people walk out. So if I am committed to a 6-month project, I have to be disciplined enough that on the days when I feel 100% or the days that I feel 20%, I'm still going to show up. So despite the challenges, despite all of these things, I'm going to lean into my faith because my faith tells me I can do it. I'm going to lean into my hope because my hope gives me the belief that I will get through it. And I also lean into, believe it or not, my testimony. And what I mean by that is I lean into where I came from. So when I feel like I'm done, I can't do anything else, this is too much for me, I know I asked for more, but I don't know how I'm going to do it, I always look back on how I was in situations before and I felt that way, but I made it through. And that gives me strength to continue to show up. Also, what gives me strength to continue to show up is knowing that the people around me are counting on me. Right? Like, so if my team, if we're a 5-man team, I'm 20%. If I don't show up, they're already at a loss. I got to show up. Knowing that others are counting on you causes you to show up, causes you to be accountable. So then because I'm accountable, it overrides all the things that's going on. I may have to tell them, guys, I'm running late, but I'm coming. And you know what? They appreciate that. People appreciate just a call. You're like, listen, don't think that I'm ignoring you all. Don't ignore people running a corner. If I'm coming, guys. It's not, I'm on my way. I am committed to the assignment. There were times where I was sick and I would call on a Zoom and be like, I still want to be present in the planning meeting. And if you guys really need me there, I'll put on a mask and I'll sit in the back just for show. And they're like, no, Ebony. I'll be like, okay, well, guys, put it on the Zoom so that I can be there with you. But just knowing that other people are counting on me and I know how much work it takes to produce things. And so because I know that, I don't want my work pushed off on other people just because I'm in a little bit of a funk. And I guess the third and final reason of why I push through challenges is because I know that once I start something, starting is the hardest part. I need y'all to hear that. Once I start something, that's the hardest part. But once I get going in it, even if I had zero energy, by the time I'm moving, I'm like, okay, we're going to get this done. We're going to get this done. My energy was very low about an hour ago. And I was like, no, I got Festival of Storytellers. I'm like, let me go get a Coke with some caffeine, even though I know that I'm bubbly already. But I was like, ooh, I'm feeling a little bit tired because I've been up since 4. So I go and grab the Coke and I'm like, yeah. And so, I'm talking to myself in the mirror. And as I begin to start to get rolling, I felt so much strength. So that's another thing. As you start, you're going to gain strength. What do I mean by that? Sometimes people are like, I'm looking for a sign. I'm looking for help. I'm looking for these things. Sometimes these things don't show up till you start walking on the path. Okay, I remember when I wanted to start my own business, I didn't know a lot of things. And so a lot of things didn't show up until I start walking down the path. So sometimes your motivation, your discipline comes just from you walking down the path. So once you start walking down the path, you're going to meet people who may meet someone else, who may introduce you to someone else. Okay. Barbara just quoted, being there can be difficult, but I always try to do so because I wouldn't want anyone to not be there for me. Right. Because what we always talk about, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you, or whatever you put out, you get back. And I know sometimes we just can't make it, but I always say, if you can't make it, just verbalize that, right? Don't have people depending on you for anything. Just show up. Just show up. Showing up. And I'm telling you, once you start, when you're facing even depression, I always tell people, just get to the shower. If you could just get to the shower. It's something about getting out of that bed when you're depressed. If you can get to the shower, you know what you can do? You can get to the front door. I always say, get to the shower, baby. If you can get to the shower, you can get to the front door. If you get to the front door, you can get to the car. And if you can get to the car, you can get to where other people are in the land of the living. And you'll begin to feel the energy, because once you start moving in the direction of a thing, you start to receive strength. I'm telling you, it happened so many times when my kids were little and they had all those recitals. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this. But as soon as I see their little cute face come out, I got my camera up. I'm screaming nice and loud, even though I've worked, like a 10-hour shift. I'm there on full blast because just the power of showing up in the space, just walking in it gave me the strength that I needed. Show up. There's another one. Oh, thank you, Melinda. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is one here too. Show up because you are inspiring others. But listen to this part. Who will never have the courage to admit it. There are some people that you guys are inspiring that'll never tell you. They will go on your social media and never put a like. You'll never know that they're even following you. You'll never know that every time you go on and say good morning, the day you don't say good morning, they're like, what's going on? You're inspiring people who may never admit that to you. That's a thing. That's a thing. I've had so many parking lot conversations where people were like, man, Eb, you are so missed from this department, or you're missed from this job, let me tell you. And I was like, you guys never told me that when I was here. They were like, but we could always count on you. We could count on you. And you would show up. And when you left, we missed that. So sometimes you won't get the appreciation while you're there. It may come later. There have been some times I've had to stand up, because something was an injustice or something was not fair, and nobody stood with me. And I felt like such a loser. And then I'll get calls that night and was like, I wanted to stand up, but I just didn't have the courage. But I totally agree. We should not be doing those practices. Thank you for your courage. So I say sometimes show up, guys, because you're inspiring people who may never have the courage to admit that you're inspiring them. Peter O'Brien, how does the concept of showing up relate to championing diversity, including sexual orientation and gender identity? So when you're showing up, I believe that you're showing, people are showing up as themselves, right? And so you're saying, how do I show up if I want to champion diversity? If you're champion diversity, first of all, if we just remove the label of diversity, okay, so we got a lot of DEI. I used to work actually in the with a lot of equity work. So if we have diversity, equity, and inclusion, if we just remove all those labels, what are you left with? People. You are left with people. And if you are a change agent or you're an advocate for people, you're going to show up for them regardless of what package they come in, whether that be Black, white, or any diversity or whatever someone carries. When you're showing up for people and you're doing the right thing for people. Now, the right thing may not always be what people like. Listen, I was a teacher. Sometimes my kids wanted to eat crayons and paste. Okay. But when you show up for people and you show up for the right things, you begin to garner a level of respect, and people begin to respect and honor the person. Okay. I may not agree with you, but that does not mean that I can't honor you. And while we're in this space working together, we're going to have a level of respect and we're going to have a level of honor. So what I can assure in this space that I'm bringing to make it safe for all is I'm not attacking you. You're not attacking me. Okay. So I believe that that's where leadership comes in. That's where HR comes in, to make sure that, yes, I can be championing my cause, but I'm going to do it in a respectful way so that I'm not damaging to those around me. Because it's one thing to stand up for what's right, and then it's another thing to be to ramrod and to bully and to get into some spaces that are not conducive for a team. Because after all is said and done, like I say, when we remove the labels, we're people. And at the end of the day, people get offended. And at the end of the day, we all are wrapped up in our own experiences and our own exposures and our own emotions. And sometimes people can just be having a whole day. And they could be having that day before they even got to the space where they're coming in contact with you. So my role is to try to gauge where a person is, and then I can gauge where I am, right? Once I gauge where I am, I know if I can escalate or de-escalate. There are some times where I can't be bright ebony because I can feel the energy that's coming from someone, and I just know they need somebody to talk to. So I'm like, hey, you just want to go grab a bite? I can do that for you. I can hold space for you. All right. And I can understand there are some days where people, they need an extra burst. So because I'm setting myself up, because I'm self-aware, I know how much I can give and receive in a given moment. And I know that I'm not here to bully or belittle anyone. Julie just said, you got to stand up and start walking before you start running. Yes, ma'am. You got to run before you walk. So with this showing up, I still have a couple of more of these. Show up and silence the mouth of your enemies. So, earlier in our sessions, we talked about how the enemy speaks to you on one side and you have the warrior on the other side. Sometimes you got to show up just to prove to yourself. A lot of times we think our greatest enemies are everybody outside, but sometimes your greatest enemy is in me, right? Your greatest enemy is in me. It's within you. It's that self-limiting talk. You know what I'm saying? It's those those intrusive thoughts that come and they sit on you and tell you what you can't do. They remind you of your past. They remind you of all these different things that are going on. And let me tell you something. You know how you silence that? You silence it by showing up. When it says that you're not good enough, you show up. When it says you can't complete something, you start completing it. Oh, Chloe, that's so, yes, be that unto you. May that be your portion as well, that you may be able to inspire greatly, because I do believe that we are all here to shine a light. Right? Because if we're not shining light, we're shining darkness. So I don't care if you got to shine a flashlight, shine a light. Everybody don't have stadium lights, but you got something. You might have a night light, shine your light, because if I'm not shining light, I'm shining darkness. So I got to choose to be in a space of light. So that's something for you, Chloe. Don't think it's small. Whatever you have, use it. Use what's in your hand, because even if it's a small light, one thing I remember when my children were babies, the darkness would fill the room and my baby girl would get really afraid, and I would have a night light and it would be about this big. And that night light was enough to illuminate the entire room. And you know what? Her fear subsided. So I always tell people, don't compare your light to anyone else. Don't be in competition to anyone else, because they may have stadium lights, but you may have a night light, and that night light is enough to soothe someone's fears. So don't be afraid to shine your light ever, ever. Show up even though you feel inadequate. I remember there were times where I didn't feel adequate, like lots of times. And I was just like, well, we're going to see how this goes. It might not be enough, but this all I got. Somebody going to like it, and so sometimes you have to show up when you feel inadequate. Sometimes you just have to show up. You can't say anything, but just your presence. I remember, when I first started traveling a lot, I didn't know what to do. So I just to follow my friends. I did everything that they did. And before I know it, I got really good at doing stuff, because I just, I was like, I don't really know what to do. And I told them, they were like, don't worry, just watch what we do. And you know what? I got really good because I was watching somebody who knew what they did. And even though I felt inadequate, quickly, I began to learn from the mentors who were kind of guiding me along till I got to a place of mastery. Show up and don't allow fear to keep you caged any longer. That's a good one, y'all. Fear will keep you in a cage. It'll keep you small. It'll keep you bound up. Fear will have you not taking steps. Fear will have you learning, and never executing. Fear will have you with 5 degrees and you working at McDonald's. Fear will have you not leaving your house. Fear will have people that's coming in your life to be a blessing and you getting rid of them. Fear will have you caged up because you're so scared. Fear will have somebody buy you a vacation and you be too scared to go. Fear will jack you up, y'all. That's an enemy. We got to silence the mouth of fear. Sometimes we got to say, not this year. The warrior is raising up. No more fear for me. No more fear. No more fear. No more fear. I got to show up. I got to show up because my next is waiting on me. How about that, y'all? How many of y'all going to show up because my next? Guess what? I got to pull out of this station, whether it's been good or bad, because my next is coming. I got to show up because my next is coming. Even though you may be walking, simply show up. Show up and be present for life. Thank you, Kathleen. If you are always looking to tomorrow, it will rob you of today. Today and every day is special. You must find the beauty in your walking season rather than constantly focusing on your next flight. You have to show up. Begin to count your blessings and decrease in your grumbling and your complaining. Defy the urge to complain by being thankful and grateful for what you have. This unlocks the door to abundance and it shifts your focus to a growth mindset. Never forget that what you have right now is always enough for multiplication. What you have right now is always enough for multiplication. I'm a math teacher, and all it takes is the number 2 to begin to multiply. So what you have in your right hand and in your left hand, that's 2. That's enough to multiply. Because if I multiply 2 times 2, I get to 4. If I multiply 4 times 2, I get to 8. So all you need is 2. So what you have in both hands is enough. Show up. Be present with both hands. I thank you all for joining me for this session. I thank you all and I honor you all for being here with me. I pray that these sessions have been life-giving and light-giving to you all. And I thank you even now. And I say unto you, check me out down below, and I'll see you next time. I am author Ebony C. Wallace of Even Birds Get Tired of Flying. See you guys later. Bye-bye.